You're probably wondering who are these guys. I'm Gilberto and that's Victor, and it's been a long time here at House of Horns. So welcome to the show again. And the Rams finally did some news, and it's a lot of news, Victor.
Yes.
Allen Robinson trade, Matthew Stafford talking again, and the draft is around the corner. But it's so good to be back here with the listeners and viewers of House of Horns. And I was checking the last time we did a video, Victor, and I want to say it
Yeah.
was like March 14 during free agency. It does not feel like it's been a month. It feels longer since we did an episode of House of Horns. And by the way, I see people still commenting. I still see the likes. I still see the subscribers going up. So I appreciate that and being patient. To give a proper introduction, again, I'm Gilberto Manzano, NFL staff writer for Sports Illustrated. And as always, joining me, Victor Javier Corona. Victor, we weren't waiting for news. We actually had a full show of draft preview, draft needs to break it down for next week. And like, you know what? We need a show. The draft is here and perfect. And of course, the Rams can't stay quiet for too long, and they had to give us some news. They're back for phase one of off-season program, not OTAs just yet. So Matthew Stafford spoke, and they somehow did it. They got rid of Allen Robinson. Goodbye, see ya. So plenty to talk about, Victor, here.
Yeah, no, and we'll get to it. It's good to be back, Gilbert. I just want to let the people know first off that we've kind of been busy doing other stuff and waiting for the Rams to do something. And as you talked about, we had a show ready to go. And then, of course, news breaks about Allen Robinson. So we'll get into all that in this episode. Plus, we'll share our draft plans for the Rams and what they do for their day two picks. I know they're still going to have to wait because, they don't have a first round pick. So we won't kind of have much to do for that Thursday. But come Friday, Saturday, we'll have plenty of coverage for the Rams. Right, Gilbert?
Yeah, and let me give some draft notes here, Victor. And you're right, there is no first round pick for the 7th year in a row. Like, I wonder if that's a record.
Wow.
I'm sure. Like, I haven't thought about. I just thought about it right now, but I should look into since 2016 a Jared Goff draft number one overall for the Rams. Like, they haven't had one. That's been 7 years in a row. So, but the wait won't be as long as other years, Victor, because they do have 3 day 2 picks. They have 11 total picks there, and the number 36 pick in the second round is pretty high for the second round. So once Friday rolls around and that draft gets going, I'm sure Rams fans are going to be itching to see who they get. So that's some of the notes there for the draft. 11 picks is a lot. And, I want to focus on the day 2 picks because those are the ones that are really going to matter. But overall, we try to give you as much information here at House of Horns. But before we move on, Victor, I see that nice hoodie you're wearing. I see the shirt in the back because I got my shirt, Compas on the Beat merch, and you're always styling and profiling. You're like the perfect model of the show and for the network.
Yeah, no, I try to make sure that we're promoting our stuff, and we got it. It's really comfortable stuff. So I mean, I don't mind, honestly. Like, we have the shirt right behind us, and then we got our I got my hoodie on. So yeah, like if you're interested, like, I'll go ahead and put our little before I forget, our little ticker there to be able to check out our store, Compas on the Beat merch.com. So check it out. Yeah. It's kind of easy when you have the ticker at the bottom, Gilbert. So
Okay, there you go.
I can't,
I always see Fernando and Dan struggling. Compas on the Beat merch.com. They always
yeah.
forget that. But real quick, I just want to share that it is cool gear, and I appreciate you saying good things. And I honestly, I can't find a person who does not like the hoodies. They always say it's so comfortable, so we're going all out for the hoodies. And it's about to be summertime, so get a t-shirt as well. But it really goes a long way for helping the network grow. House of Horns. I know people are not as fans of the Chargers here, but we also have What's Up Boats, Combat Compas if you like boxing, MMA, and obviously the flagship station, Compas on the Beat. I almost said .com. We also have a website, comasonthebeat.com.
Yes.
But whatever you can, stickers, shirts, hat, whatever, just check it out. You don't have to buy anything, but just do me a favor. When you get to the website, comasonthebeatmerch.com, see how it's messed up. Link in the description. Check it out. And you see the annoying pop-up is going to come up. Just put your email and subscribe to the newsletter. That's all we ask. You don't have to buy anything, but if you do buy something, you're going to be really grateful because it helps us, grow the network, buy better equipment so we can sound perfect. Maybe better lighting here because I might move soon, by the way, Victor, so my lighting could be off, or just go on the road, Super Bowl radio road, stuff like that. That really goes a long way. But I'm done kind of, asking for help there, but I would like the help.
Yes.
And we do have plenty to kind of for you guys to check out on all the networks here, the all the YouTube channels, the IG follows, Compas on the Beat. Same thing with TikTok. So whatever you can do, we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to Ram fans because we've been getting even though we haven't had a show for almost a month, as you said. We've continued to get subscriptions. People are checking out the videos as you talked about earlier. We appreciate that love, man. And this is it's a way for from the merchandise that if you help us out, it goes a long ways to be able to give more content. And just thankful for Ram fans because they've been awesome. Like we haven't like the subscriptions that we've been able to get on House of Horns kind of double what we had for What's Up Boats and um Combat Compas at one point. So it just tells you that Ram fans are out there watching us and listening to us on on the podcast as well, Gilbert.
Yeah, we felt the love right away, and I know during the off season it's going to be slow, but when every time I got a notification, oh, new subscriber, like it was awesome because we haven't made a video in a month, and we got to do it. And real quick, shout out and thank you to my partner Caroline for doing the new graphic tees on Combos on the Beat merch.com. She spent countless hours doing the new shirt, so check it out. A couple good ones you'll like. There's 5 new ones there. Obviously, this one too, the classic tee, but plenty of options. But she did a great, wonderful job. That's a team effort here at the Compas on the Beat Network, so I appreciate her for that. But Victor, I'm ready to move on, talk some Rams. I think I have a question, right?
Yeah, what is the engagement question to get us going here? So, what position should the Rams prioritize in the draft, Gilbert?
Yeah, so that is a question I was going to answer right away, but I'm going to give you the answer later because we have the draft preview here. But I want to hear from you, the listeners and viewers of House of Horns, because we love to engage here. If you're watching this video, comment. If you're listening to the audio, by the way, tell more people about the audio. I feel like the YouTube, we're doing strong, but we need to kind of pick it up on the audio. So if you're driving LA traffic, as we all know, pop it in there. Well, it's not cassette, it's not a cassette, right? Or CD. We're like,
No.
press on the Bluetooth and put on
Yes.
Apple Podcast and listen to House of Horns. Get that going too as well. Don't forget about that. But if you're on the audio, get to YouTube, comment on this video. What position should the Rams prioritize in the draft? Because it's a whole lot of needs. I'm already laughing in my head thinking about it. Aaron Donald needs a lot of help on defense. So you go a lot of ways there. Maybe don't worry too much about finding a star defensive tackle, but you need a lot of help there. And then obviously Stafford needs help up front with the offensive line. Cooper Kupp needs more help with Allen Robinson gone. So many ways you could go. Let me know in the comments. I want to hear from you, and I'll give you and Victor's thoughts as well later on the show. But we got to get to some news and notes, right?
Yes. Let's start up with some draft notes in terms of the draft picks, how many they have. And instead of taking, like I did, the question, I'll let you go ahead and get into the draft notes, Gilbert.
Yeah, 11 total picks and 3 in day 2, and I probably should have done my research, but I don't know if they had a second rounder last year. It might have been just no, yeah, I'm right. Logan
Logan
Bruss was a
Bruss.
third round
Yes.
pick last year, so something different. They're getting higher, they're getting closer. Unfortunately for the Rams, they reminder for the first time of I guess in April, 12 losses last year, so that means they were at 36, pretty high. Number 6 in the first round is technically the Rams pick, but that's going to Detroit. But who cares about history, right? So yeah, more to look forward to this draft, and again, give me your response on which position and prioritize because I really don't know which way they're going to go. I will give you my responses, but number 36 is very intriguing because you go in various ways. Maybe a wide receiver falls out of the first round. Maybe one of these stud tight ends fall out. Maybe the run on edge rusher doesn't go too soon, and maybe the Rams could get one there. So plenty there, and having 11 total picks has probably been a long time since they had 11. A lot of comp picks there, and I'm sure they'll probably get a few more because a lot of people left this past season as well.
Yeah, no, and I'm very intrigued by what they might do there. I know we've talked about it off air in terms of some of the things they can do there. I just feel like if you're there and somebody wants to trade up at 36, you should do it just to get more because you need bodies. Like we were talking about how the defense, outside of Aaron Donald and probably Ernest Jones, they need to fill everything. I mean, honestly, like I've seen people trying to mock different players to the Rams, and I'm just like, look, whatever, like in position of need, it's everything. Whatever you just take the best available player, whatever on your board is the best player for the Rams. That's who they're gonna go. And honestly, like having 11 picks doesn't seem like enough. Like they're gonna need more than that. And not trying to be like trying to make a joke out of it, just
That's
because
true.
it's the reality of having to pay for that Super Bowl. And now you're gonna need, yeah, like we kind of, I was optimistic, Gilbert, as we went into the off season, and now reality has kind of set in for me. Like I've been doing a lot of research, and it's just like, and then here listening to people talk about the Rams, it's been like I was blown away with how negative some of the stuff has been in terms of looking at this roster, because I just thought, wait, they're still heavy loaded, but when you look at it, you still need players on both sides of the ball, Gilbert.
Yeah, like you mentioned, besides maybe Ernest Jones, maybe Jordan Fuller, there's not much experience on defense, but you could go various ways there. And the other thing, Victor, I was thinking about, because when you were talking about the 11 draft picks, like, when you have that many draft picks, especially like the comp picks in the back end, like in day 3 kind of picks, 6th round, 7th round, a lot of these guys won't make the roster because you'll see what you got in the OTAs, maybe in training camp, and you know what? All right, it's okay to kind of like get rid of this guy because the draft pick was like your 4th, 7th rounder, and it's okay. This time around, if you get drafted by the Rams, you have a strong shot of making the roster because they only have like 45 players on the roster, and this is a time of year where you should have 90. So they are by far have the fewest players currently on the roster. So if they're like in the 45 range, you get 11 there. That's still what, 60 something, not even 50 something. My math is terrible, but pretty much you're gonna probably make the roster because you're a draft pick, and we'll see. You never know, because the thing is, free agency went by. They didn't really add people. They can't really do it. We're gonna get into the whole dead money thing later on, but
Yes.
uh, yeah, it's all these young players are gonna get an opportunity to play, and it's that from that kind of standpoint, it is intriguing to see who they get because these guys might be familiar names come training camp.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind is that if you're a player who might get drafted in the 6th or 7th round, you might tell those teams, you know what, don't draft me because I have a better shot of going to the Rams and going undrafted. Because that's what a lot of players do. Eventually, they're like, they get into the 6th and 7th round, and they're like, you know what, like, we're gonna draft you, and they're like, no, I'd rather just take my chances going undrafted and go and picking and choosing the team that I might have a chance to get on, and that's what usually happens. So you might see a lot of undrafted players heading to LA this summer.
Maybe they'll pull off a trifecta of drafting a kicker, a punter, and a long snapper because they need that too.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. Looking at this roster, I had totally forgotten until somebody mentioned it, like on a podcast, that the Rams don't have a kicker, a punter, or a long snapper, which is rare. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Usually, you have at least one in place. They have none.
And I know these are positions are kind of overlooked, but like come regular season, special teams does really matter. And you have a
Yes.
lot of inexperienced guys at every position that's vital. It could be a really messy year for the Rams. But I don't know. They know what I guess they know what they're doing. They got Leslie, Sean McVay, but you were gonna get into it, but I don't know what the hell they call this season. But
I
again,
mean,
I don't.
this is where paying your scouting department is really going to pay off, because having that Stan Kroenke money is going to really go a long way, especially with your scouting department, because we've seen what they've been able to do in the later rounds. So, yeah, it'll be something. But let's get to news and notes. And our show kind of changed because of this with the Rams. We kind of talked about this, Gilbert, that the Rams were gonna they might be looking to trade Allen Robinson, and here we are. What was your reaction when you heard that they were actually able to work out a trade?
When I first heard about the I guess the pending physical for Allen Robinson in Pittsburgh, I'm like, oh wow, they actually found somebody to take on this contract. Like I already knew in my mind, like, okay, it won't be about draft pick, it's about who's gonna take the most of the money and then how much money will the Rams eat. And it wasn't that bad. It worked out for the Rams. And I guess maybe Mike Tomlin saw my tweets about Allen Robinson being a monster in the summer. He's like, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance on that guy because I
Yeah.
am a little surprised how they did it, but they kind of give you the terms here. The Steelers will pay $5 million of Allen Robinson's salary,
Hmm.
and the Rams will pay the remaining $10
10
million
million.
right there. And then they kind of swap 7th round draft picks, and the Rams get a higher 7th rounder, but I guess who really cares? And actually, no, it still be 11, right? Because I didn't update the I think about it, I didn't update the total 11 picks after the trade, but it was a swap for a pick, so I think we're good. It is still 11 there, but yeah, they found a partner to take on Allen Robinson, and then for the Steelers, they get him with George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, right? Or no, Johnson, yeah.
Hmm.
So a nice little trio receiving core there, but it just didn't work out with the Rams there. It was supposed to be Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, and just never really flourished there. So uh, they got it done. They worked it out with the Steelers, and if you're looking at the Rams point of view, like Tutu Atwell, you got to step up. Van Jefferson, you got to step up because there's a lot of inexperienced players with the Rams behind Cooper Kupp. So they got it done with Allen Robinson leaving, and I don't know, like when the physical was kind of concerning because I'm like, okay, this guy has an injury. He was a step slower. Maybe that could be an issue here. Where the physical doesn't go through, but they got it done, and I know maybe the people who really watch the film closely could tell you that Allen Robinson was a step or two slower, and maybe the Steelers say, you know what, that's not the case. We could work with this, but for some reason, Sean McVay couldn't fit him in there. Matthew Stafford couldn't throw to him, and also at the end of the day, it was probably more about getting rid of the contract because this is a year where they're saying clean the books, let's start
Yep.
fresh in 2024.
Yeah, and that was pretty much what it was because they're and then we'll get into the whole dead money because they're taking on $21 million of dead cap money with this deal, and trading them now is it keeps them from adding it to next season. So they're taking on everything this season. But I thought it was I wasn't shocked because I told you I wouldn't be surprised just because it just didn't look right with both on both sides with Allen Robinson and as well with the offense and Sean McVay. Whether it was Matthew Stafford or even with I don't know. Well, by then he had already called it a season. He was on the injury list. He was gone, so it didn't matter with the rest of the quarterbacks. But uh, a couple of things that I kind of just as I was researching and kind of going over Allen Robinson little what half a season with the Rams was that he was actually separating from cornerbacks, so that wasn't the issue. I just think that he just didn't fit this offense and with what they wanted to do. So I just thought that was one thing that kind of stood out for me. And then in terms of the Steelers, we with the Steelers, I was kind of surprised just because they always pick up receivers in the draft. They've been great at
Mm.
developing receivers. And so to see them be the ones who wanted Allen Robinson kind of told me something. And I guess they must have seen on film that he can still separate. And it also helps that he's going to a place where they're, yeah, they're good at developing receivers, but they can also find a role for him where they can put him in a good situation to succeed. I think they needed a big receiver because of how their receivers work right now. And I think it's a perfect fit for them. And it's only going to cost them $5 million. So it's a bargain for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. When you think about it, yeah, just $5 million and the 7th round draft pick that we're still gonna get one back regardless. It's just a little different in the numbers there. I think for the Steelers, so you know what, we'll do it. And like you mentioned, maybe just saw the tape, still separating, and to be he's gonna be the number 3 wide receiver. He won't be ahead of the two other guys. Deontay,
Well,
it's got to be Johnson, right? Why am I
yeah,
forgetting his
Deontay
name?
Johnson. Yep.
And then George Pickens, the
Yep.
second year player there. So he'll be the number 3 there. And then the only problem is we don't know about Kenny Pickett, but that's a Steelers show. We don't have to worry
Yes.
about that. In terms of the Rams, like I'm really intrigued because you know you can still find a good wide receiver in the 2nd or 3rd round. Maybe they go that route. I don't know if they should because they have so many needs, but I think it might be the final year for Van Jefferson. I guess you call it make or break season. Same thing with Tutu Atwell going into his 3rd year. Uh, yeah, so Van Jefferson was the
You're
fourth
you're
year,
you're forgetting
and the
our
4 year,
yeah.
and Tutu 30 years. So there you go. So for both of those guys, it's an important year. They're both 2nd round draft picks. Now I remember that for sure. And Tutu Atwell, like last year, he started off with the one bomb against Dallas, the one bomb in New Orleans, a touchdown there, and then it kind of got quiet. And then like the last one of the season, he stepped up. He was reliable, moved the chains in some crucial moments. So for him, he needs to become a high volume receiver and be more consistent. Van Jefferson just gotta stay healthy, man. You're a good player, and we saw what he did with Baker Mayfield in that Raiders game, the
Yeah.
game-winning touchdown. He has his moments there, but he just gotta stay healthy. We'll see what they do. Maybe the Rams are banking on Jefferson staying healthy, and that's how they feel like, okay, that's enough depth. And then remember Lance McCutcheon and those guys
I
when
was
they have
just gonna say you
Ben
forgot about
Skoranek.
preseason star Lance
I won't fall for it
McCutcheon.
right now, but I will in August when they're talking about. But actually, Ben Skoranek, I shouldn't disrespect him like that. This guy does
Yeah,
a lot.
he's
He's a
especially
blocker,
playing
fullback.
fullback. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that one for sure you could get me on for forgetting. So he probably will. Remember when Ben Skoranek was like, the start one of the number 3 guys, the number 3 wide receiver when Van went down. People are like, why? Well, he did prove me wrong there for why. So I shouldn't forget Ben Skoranek again.
Yeah, and everybody remembers that Van Jefferson catch against the Raiders, but it was Ben Skoranek was huge on that last drive against the Raiders on that Thursday night. So
Yeah.
yeah, Ben Skoranek is going to be a big part of this offense. Mark my words, Gilbert. Because
Okay, fine. No wide
yeah,
receiver in day 2. That's
yeah, I just don't see them. I mean, they might draft one late or pick up another undrafted guy, but I wouldn't go there. You have the best receiver, top 3 receiver in the league in Cooper Kupp. If he's back healthy, you pair him up with Van Jefferson and then the other 2 guys, you'll be fine.
okay. Ready to go on to Stafford? I just want to
Yes,
kind of
let's
discuss
get
his
let's get
words.
to it because I know how much you love April workouts.
Oh no. I yeah, I am not a beat reporter anymore. So I don't have to be and suffer through these dumb April workouts, and also the dumb conversations where everybody has new hope and optimism, and I'm in the best shape of my life, and I just hate the kind of boring cliches, and it's also a weird time when you have these media interviews and these workouts because we're all focused on the draft. I'm doing research on the draft. Why do I have to worry about this one cliche quote and do a story? Like that's the annoying part, but for Matthew Stafford, I would have given a pass because I thought it was an interesting interview because this guy here, he's a who says that? I feel like it sounded like somebody. This guy here, maybe it's Chris Collinsworth. Uh, this
Yes.
guy here, uh, he is a veteran quarterback who's accomplished a lot in his career. Won the Super Bowl, had a lot of great years with Detroit. And then he was banged up last year, and he had some serious injuries. And it's like, do you really want to come back to a rebuilding project when you did that for your first 12 or so years in Detroit? You finally went to a winning program. You don't want to take a beating for no reason. How do you feel about being on this team, Matthew? When reporters were asking, I'm like, I was listening. Like, okay, what is it? What do you say? And I know he went with some cliches, like, yeah, you know what, you know, he was honest though. He said, I'm no longer a human jugs machine because this guy was known for that arm strength, the speed, the range, and I think a lot of people were trying to like, especially the Sean McVay. Remember in the summer, like, oh, there's nothing
Yep.
wrong with his throwing arm, his elbow, and as we
Yep.
saw throughout the season, he was rarely going deep, and it was tough to tell because the offensive line stunk and he didn't have time to even go deep. But when he says things like that, hey, I no longer am a human jugs machine. It's like, okay, his he doesn't have the same speed or range, but he still has plenty of zip. And for him to be healthy and be practicing in OTAs, no, phase 1, get it right, phase 1
Phase
of
one, man.
OTAs in May, I think. That's a good sign. And then for him, it was big that he's participating because a year ago that he wasn't part of that into training camp, and then training camp he got shut down for 2 weeks, and it was just a whole mess. But I was curious what he say about staying for a rebuilding project. But I think having Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp around and Aaron Donald on defense was a big part of it.
Yeah, this was a big sign for in terms of if you're wanting to be positive about the 2023 season for the Rams. It's a big first step in terms of having your quarterback be there, healthy. It seems like, and I don't know about you, Gilbert, but for me, it felt like this was he's going into his second season because I felt like last season was a lost season for him. And it's kind of like, okay, let me regroup now. Let me focus on what I need to do because Like he got to LA and he won a Super Bowl, and then he got hurt, and it seemed like he was lost for the whole year. Yeah, he played some games, and he was a big part of the early part of the season. But after that, it just seemed like they were just rotating quarterbacks, and now it just feels like he's going into his second season with the Rams, and and just like as you talked about, there's usually not a lot of noise right now in terms of teams, who are showing up to the facility, but this kind of perked our ears here because of what he had to say, and it became big news because you want to see how he does. Like the big question has been, well, is he going to come back? Is he going to retire? And to hear him say that he never considered retirement, as we talked about on our group chat about other quarterbacks saying that they've considered retiring, and for him to say that just it. Number one, it tells you how how big of a leader he is, but also how tough he is. Like the guy's been in the league, he's taken so many hits, he's been battered, injured. I mean, the guy had his spleen removed or something like that that was really bad. I mean, to see where he's at now, and he just looks rejuvenated. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw the same thing, Gilbert.
I definitely did, and he looked like he was just excited to be out there, and then maybe we're reading too much into it, but for a veteran who's accomplished that much, I want to say you're 15 now, I forget. But to be excited for April workouts when I'm the one that's annoyed about it, so I think he really missed the whole like not being part of the off-season program, and he probably realized like yeah, like you got to be out there for a little bit, and it kind of ruined the chemistry, it ruined his routine, this and that. So I think that part he was excited, and then people are kind of counting out the Rams again. Maybe he enjoys that kind of proving you wrong approach, and yeah, to go off the whole never considering retirement thing, like I like when players are honest, but if you're thinking about retirement, then you should probably go. And obviously, the other guy who mentioned that he thought about it was Tua, and I appreciate his honesty. But like, it's not a good sign when you have injury concerns. You haven't been durable in the NFL, and then now it's in your head you want to retire. Like, it really messes with your head, and tells people in the locker room like, oh, you're trying to leave, like you're trying to get going here. And I know people, it's a new age, and you want to be open about what's going on in your thoughts and all that. But in football, what you
Yep.
say in the locker room matters. It's a tough game. You got to be physical, and obviously when you can't play injury because you're going to hurt the team. But Stafford being, his toughness goes a long way. And then to just say, hey, I never thought about retirement. Like it really shows like, hey, he wants to be here. He wants to try to win. And then to show up for whatever they got going on here, I'm not gonna call it a retool anymore.
A
I'm not buying
remodel.
less. Yeah, remodel. Sorry, Leslie. When I'm looking at what I'm seeing on paper, this is a rebuild. And then what you're doing with the cap space and all that, it's a rebuild. So for Stafford to still be here and enjoying it, sometimes those are the years where you really surprise people.
Yeah, no, and I agree because at least they don't have to be in the draft looking for a quarterback. They know what they have, and it sounds like he's going to be here for a couple years. And I mean, who wouldn't like to retire in LA? And I mean, after all those years he had it with the Lions, I'm sure, and he knows that it's not going to take that long to get things back on the road, especially when you have Sean McVay, you have Les Need, you have people who have done this before. And so when they talk about, like, I guess the only problem we have, Gilbert, and I'm, as you've talked about it, is like, don't lie to us. We know this is a rebuilding year. It's not, or a remodel. Like we know they're actually rebuilding, and but at least at least we're we're gonna give them credit for for the path that we know they're going to get on eventually. Is they've been really good about fixing things right off the right away. So he's on a good team to be able to do that. So, and he could trust the process here as people in Philly know.
Yeah, and to kind of like support the claim that it is a rebuilding year. Let's get to this nugget that you mentioned, Victor. When we were texting, you sent me a screenshot. All the dead money they've taken on with all the departures, Allen Robinson, Jalen Ramsey trade, Bobby Wagner release, Leonard Foyer release. Even Andrew Whitworth's on this list of dead money when he
Yes,
retired.
retire.
Affected them. So a lot's going on here. So Rams are eating I guess dead cap money of $73 million in 2023, and somehow that is not the highest in the NFL. It's number
Right.
two.
That was the shocking thing, Gilbert.
To the Buccaneers are 74, and that's because Tom Brady retired. So these retirement contracts, they do kind of bite you in the butt there. So Whitworth is not biting them as much as Tom Brady is biting the Buccaneers over there. Yeah, $74 million is a lot. And 73 here is, of course, a lot. But you, like you've been saying all along, Victor, Stan Kroenke money has deep pockets. You can afford to eat the dead money, and that's why you can do quick rebuilds. You say, hey, you know what? One year kind of eating it and then go to the next phase. And that's what like I like when Leslie put it that way. Like it is a third year of a phase. And that kind of was more an admission, like, yeah, like you're not the same team you were before. You're not a contender anymore. So, and when you look at that dead money, you told a lot of talented players goodbye, or older players. It's time to keep the younger guys, develop them. It's time to keep your draft picks. And by next year, I'll be shocked if they trade their first rounder for next year, because
Oh
you
no.
can't do that anymore. So yeah, that was a good nugget there. $73 million is a lot, and it's a big indicator that it's a rebuild year. And yeah, they told a lot of players, take your money and get out of our lives, because we're trying to fix the salary cap.
Yeah, and I mean it clears up 74 million for next year, in salary cap help there. So they'll have more than, depending on how the cap goes next year, how much it goes up, because it's gonna, especially with the new YouTube money that's coming in, which we didn't get into it, Gilbert, but it's gonna cost a lot of money to be able to get Sunday ticket now because of that new. But that's for another show and another day. But in terms of in terms of the cap, they're doing pretty good for next year. As the what's his name, the COO, is that what it is? Kevin Demoff?
Yeah,
Is he
Kevin
the
Dillon, yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Demoff. As he talked about when he sent the letter to the season ticket holders, he said that, I mean, that they would have uh, some a lot of cap money, and he's right. They're gonna have between 75 and 80. We'll see where they're at. But I think one of the things that I do like about this is that they're admitting it and they're fixing it. Unlike and I keep using the New Orleans Saints. I just don't understand what they're
Yeah.
doing with, with trading, with signing Derek Carr and continuing to just eat, bring back Michael Thomas, and you're just pushing that dead money. And I like what the Rams are doing here. They're like, look, we're gonna get rid of all these contracts in 1 year, and then we're gonna reassess in the next year, and we'll have all this cap money to go after and make another run with this core. So I really like that direction, Gilbert.
Yeah, no, I do too. You're admitting your mistakes, and I think they also knew in their mind, in the back of their mind, like, hey, you can't have a full rebuild project in LA because no one's going to go to your games at SoFi Stadium. And it's been a couple of years now of the new shiny stadium. People have seen it. They don't need to go pay to go see SoFi Stadium. So if you don't have a Cooper Cup out there, an Aaron Donald or a Matthew Stafford, it could have been a lot of empty seats. So I think they're going to try to make it work. And Sean McVay, being a good coach that he is, it's going to be a feisty little pesky team that might, contend for a wild card, but it could be a long year, and we'll see how they looks in the stands. But no doubt about it, it is a rebuild year in a weird way, because they do have a pretty nice trio for the core group, at least.
Yeah. And just kind of moving on now, Gilbert, like this was going to be our original plan for this
Yeah.
show was to talk about the draft, but we got a bunch of news and we kind of got into the cap and then the whole Allen Robinson trade. Where do we start with the Rams draft needs?
Yeah, let's kind of like give the needs real quick, and then I want to give a plan and some advice if they'll take it for the Rams. But the needs, like we mentioned like earlier, like besides Ernest Jones and Jordan Fuller, like nobody really has experience outside of Aaron Donald. It's like two phases there. The Aaron Donald phase, like, who just don't worry about that guy, and then like Ernest Jones, a little mix there. He sat behind Bobby Wagner this year. Maybe you kind of get to where he needs to go to. High hopes there, and then Jordan Fuller just can't stay healthy, but he's still considered a starter. And then after that, it's a lot of unknown. Like maybe you got the Michael Hoyts there. Like, can he really keep it up and be a solid edge rusher? Like, I don't know. He was good, but well, like he's not a number one guy. He's right now the number one edge rusher. And then you lost your meat and potatoes. I always remember that from Raheem Morris. Greg Gaines is gone. No Ashawn Robinson. Obviously, no Bobby Wagner. your cornerbacks, no Jalen Ramsey, no Troy Hill. They did sign some young safeties last year, and Russ Yeast and then Quentin Lake from UCLA. So they might be okay at the safety spot, but you need some corners, you need some edge rushers, and then offense, man. You need offensive line, and I know they're banking a lot on the guys who got hurt last year staying healthy because they are young and you use draft picks on them. But still, you need like you should always remember what happened in 2022 and still draft guys just in case for injury and have the depth.
Yep.
And then I think we already settled no wide receiver. Tight end, surprisingly, I keep forgetting they got Hunter Long. Maybe they believe in Hunter Long. They got Bryson Hopkins with Tyler
Yeah.
Higbee. Maybe they're okay there. But then maybe running back okay. They got Kyron Williams and Cam Akers. But so offensive line and a whole lot of defense, I think they should focus on.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this simple, and I'm just gonna. I think there's a great example of something that can really work, um, and that's Matt Rule with the Panthers. What they did a couple years ago, they drafted all defense. They just went all defense, and look at the players. He's been fired now. But if you look at that Panthers defense going into 2023, it's they drafted Brian Burns. If you and I know they don't have a first round pick, and that's where it's a bit different. But because you have all these draft picks and you go all defense here, you have a better chance of being able to, hit on some of these. And if you do, you can end up kind of like what the Panthers did, where you have a really good defense 2-3 years down the road. You already have Aaron Donald. You just try to fix it, and then you still have the post June 1st. As I know, we didn't talk about this in terms of the cap space, but they have around $7 million without the draft, whatever the draft picks are going to cost them. So you still have a little bit of money, and then you'll have a little bit more the post June cuts. So and then you can start signing 1 year players like to minimum contracts at that point. So that's where a lot of this roster is going to be filled in. But for
Yeah.
me, it's just I would say just go all defense, Gilbert. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I don't hate it because again, it's Aaron Donald and a bunch of dudes. So and yeah, like I think June 1st is a good date to kind of look into for the Rams because they have spots to fill and they need to fill the 90-man roster come training camp. And there's a couple of veterans that need a fresh start or whatever. Maybe it's a time to take a chance on these 1 year deals that you mentioned. So I think the draft's gonna be a big selling point or a telling point of how this roster is going to look. And then after that, get a couple of veterans to kind of help out because it's very young and obviously you got the captains there, Cup and Stafford and Donald. But yeah, I don't mind the defense approach, and Raheem Morris will be very thankful if they go that route. But Victor, I'm ready to kind of give a draft plan and maybe some
Yeah.
advice. And I don't know if you have some advice yourself, and let me know if my advice is terrible here. And then after that, we can maybe discuss some prospects that I've been eyeing on because I did do a mock draft at Sports Illustrated for the teams without the first round pick. So
I
I
was
did
gonna.
include the Rams in there. So check it out. I did mention let's see if I remember their pick 36, their pick
Yes.
69, and their pick 77. Those are all the day two picks. So check that out, and we'll discuss some here. But let's go with the plan here, and let me know if I'm wrong here. Should the Rams go edge rusher no matter what at number 36 because they do need edge rusher? What do you think about that?
I would say that if the right player is there, yes. But my plan would be like if they listen, would be try to trade and get more picks. That would be my plan. But I don't disagree here. Like try to get an edge rusher, especially if one of those dudes falls to you at 36. I know you've talked about, and I was gonna say you up here because you wrote a great story because you went and wrote about all the teams that didn't have a draft pick in the first round. And as you talked about, you did you did all the research because now that you're at SI, you're having to do a lot of these kind of stories, and so you can give us a little bit more in depth into some of these players. And so I'll start with the first one, and you tell me a little bit about them. The
Yeah,
first one is Will McDonald from Iowa State.
yeah. the shout out to Dane Brigler. Hopefully not
Yeah,
butchering
the
his name, but
beast.
from the Beast, the Athletic. It's so helpful when you're really doing these deep dives on all these players. Like, yeah, it's easy to do a first round mock draft because you know all these names and everybody has them covered and you can watch film. But these middle round guys, like a team
Yes.
for the Rams, where like you got to do some research. Like the Beast is awesome, and I got most of the stuff there, but Will McDonald from Iowa State, like he kept coming to me to my mind because I saw his name everywhere. Like it could be first round, second round, and I started doing some research, and I really like what he was doing at Iowa State and the way he plays, and so if he somehow falls in the second round, jump and get Will McDonald because this is a first round talent, and sometimes that does happen. But the thing I'm concerned about, Victor, is a lot of these teams or the ones ahead of them, like in the back end of the first round, and then the 4 or 5 teams ahead of the Rams in the second round, they need edge rushers. Everybody needs an edge rusher. It's a premium position in the NFL. And if that run is happening while the Rams are waiting, and you're like, oh, there goes Will McDonald. Like, what do you do? So, he is number one on my list for potential guys that I edge rusher there because of the talent. He has a lot of athletic traits, and he might be kind of a guy you want to have in Raheem Morris's scheme, but it might be tough for him to fall outside of the first round.
Yeah, and before we get to your second guy here, one of the things that kind of bugs me about a lot of these mock drafts that I continue to see, you reminded me of it, is because when we were doing our research for our previews for all the 32 teams for their draft needs. The one name that kept coming up for offensive line for all these teams was Darnell Wright from Tennessee. And I was like, he's not going to go like from pick 15 all the way to like 30. Every team seemed like he's an option for them to draft. And I'm just like, okay, like, can we have other guys? There's more guys like out there, and I'm glad you're able to find some of these guys. So we're gonna get to number two, and that's BJ Ojulari from LSU. What can you
Yeah,
tell me about him?
yeah, you probably recognize the last time at his. I want to say his brother plays at New York Giants. The Giants.
Hmm.
He I think he played at Georgia, right? But he went to LSU, went his different way. But this guy, he's a versatile edge rusher and kind of another late first round prospect, second round. So these are the two pick names that I went with for. If you get greedy, if you have intentions of maybe going up, or you're just waiting for the one of these two guys to fall, you don't hesitate and you do it. And I think you mentioned, yeah, earlier you mentioned, Victor, maybe trade down. That's better for you said, but I feel like with this such a kind of a weak roster, like you might need an impact player. So the more you trade down, the less chances you get for an impact player. So I kind of like them sticking there, but then again, you get more draft picks, it might benefit you in the long run. But those are the two guys that for me that you got to either hope they stay there or maybe you make a move to get aggressive. But those are really asking a lot for those guys to be there.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons, Gilbert, that I say kind of trade back is because one of the things I've heard a lot from in the scouting combine from GMs is that this is a draft that has a lot of good picks between rounds 2 and 3, and so you want to get picks in that area. So if you're able, like one of the things that I can see the Rams doing a lot is maybe they don't trade back their number 2 pick, but they do the other day 2 picks where you want to be in that range between the 50s and the 115, because the one thing we've talked about on regular Compas is that this draft has a lot of really good corners. Like there's 7 guys that I think are have first round grades. One of those is gonna fall, so maybe the Rams could pick one of those at 36. You have a big tight end class, an offensive line class. So you're going to be able to find talent in those middle rounds, and we've seen what Leslie can do with those picks. So that's why I'm saying, like, get yourself more picks and give yourself more chances to be able to hit on some of these players. And so that's my reasoning. Like I said, maybe and don't be surprised if some of those later picks they trade up to get some of those players, because maybe they don't think that a lot of these players are going to stick with them, and they know they also have the option of picking up dudes undrafted, and then post June. So that's why I'm kind of looking at it that
Yeah.
way. And so you want to pick up as many dudes as you can in that range.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're giving the counter because if you don't say they're not going for edge rusher or they don't want to stay at number 36 or whatever it is, you don't want to reach at the end of the day. And you want to have a good plan and say, like I mentioned, if there's a good wave of edge rushers and all the good ones are there who should be in the 36 range, don't reach and go like you mentioned. It's a deep cornerback class. The one I'm kind of hesitant about is tight end because I kind of feel like you got to fill other needs. And I know tight ends
Yep,
are really loaded this year, but you already what does Hunter Long have? Let's just see what he does. He's out there. Maybe if Bryson
exactly.
Hopkins puts it together, and you have one more year of Tyler Higbee. Worry about tight end later, I feel like, but it's going to be really enticing if a Darnell Washington or Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, Washington from Georgia, they're there. They're hanging out there, and like it kind of feels like a luxury pick. But when you have to repair the offensive line, you need DBs, you need defensive linemen. It's going to be a tough situation there. So I'm glad you brought that up. But let me give you the two more names, and then we'll speed it
Go
up
ahead.
and to kind of address other prospects, other positions. Uh, but the one I put for the mock draft I did for I got realistic. This guy here, I'm going to butcher his name for sure. Uh,
Yep,
Felix Andoke Ozuma
yep,
from Kansas State, edge rusher. He's the one who I put in the mock draft at number 36 because he seems like he'll be there, he'll be available. And then after that, you kind of bet on the upside, the tools. And, this guy was doing a little bit of everything in Kansas State. So I feel like, if Dane's giving a good review about him, other people have to as well. I'm like, okay, you know what? The Rams are pretty good, especially Raheem Morris of reaching that untapped potential. So this guy from Kansas State, you see that name, Felix. Just remember Felix?
yes,
Uh, remember that I gave a good review there. Well, mostly Dane, but people at the Athletic are raved by him. And then give you the other one here who might be in the range as well. Keon White, Georgia Tech is another name that kept coming up. So again, when you're at 36, you're kind of betting on upside in trades, and these are guys that are not as polished, who might take some bumps and bruises along the way. And the tough part for the Rams, they need these guys to play right away. So you're gonna see a lot of mistakes, but you never know, it could pay off. Guys take a while to develop, and Keon White from Georgia Tech could be there, but again, uh, don't reach. And I threw in a couple of other names for positions, like I threw in tight end just in case. But offensive tackle, guards, corners, there's different ways to go when you have different needs. But yeah, trade down or whatever you can do to get a good player. Just don't reach at the position because you feel like we have quarterback here, and then edge rushers are next most important position. But then they're all kind of gone. You don't want to reach for that either, too.
yeah. And I'll give one guy. I know. We didn't have it on the rundown here, but one guy that I kind of I've been hearing a lot about, and he's someone that you probably haven't heard because he went to Bowling Green, and that is Carl Brooks. He's somebody who really stood out at the Senior Bowl practices. I don't think he was invited to the scouting combine, but he's somebody that I've heard Mel Kiper talking about as someone who he's going to go on day two. So just for the Rams, I'd say just keep an eye on Carl Brooks. He might be an option there for them in day two with those three picks they have. So that's one name that I'll give for Ram fans.
Then let me give you another one counter from my mock draft again at SI. Maybe you should go read it probably.
Yes,
But
do it.
I saw Tyler Steen from Alabama. I like that he played Alabama because he was a star on left tackle. It wasn't the same Alabama team of the last few years where they're dominant. Like, they kind of struggled this year with Nick Saban and Bryce Young. But for the play left tackle Alabama, you must be doing something right. And then you're also versatile too. You play guard, so um, around
Which is
this.
what you want on this offense. Sorry,
Well, yeah,
that's
that
the way.
definitely
Yeah,
with
yeah,
injuries. Remember, the guys were kind
yep,
of moving position and stuff like that. You do want that, but I think I had Tyler Steen here from Alabama in the third
yes,
round, so he's more of a third round player range. So at that point, like, it's funny because last year, people just assumed Logan Russ would be a starter because he was the first pick of the Rams class in 2022, but he was a third round draft pick, and there's a reason why he was sitting behind Coleman Shelton because he just wasn't ready to go. He was a second round, the first round, throw him out there. But the third round range is tough there. And Tyler Steen, maybe you don't need him to play right away because you do have some healthy bodies. You're gonna have Joe Noteboom back. You're gonna have Rob Havenstein, who was the only one that was pretty solid. So guys are gonna be back. You don't have to rush him right away, but at least develop him behind the scenes. Because remember last year, he wasn't drafted. I think actually he was 7th round pick. AJ Curry, he was kind of developed in the background. And then after like 5 tackles got hurt, like okay, kid, you're up next now. So and he was actually not bad. So
Yeah.
that was like I think week 10 by then. So it could be something we're doing stuff like that. So and I'll just give my other player, the guard, Chandler Savala. I wonder if he's
Hmm.
Latino because it sounds like a Latino last name, but
Yes.
Chandler from
And
Savala, NC State. Oh, I actually have another one here. Anthony Bradford from
Bradford.
LSU. The one that I remember the most is Savala. I think I had on I mocked to somewhere else. I forget where. Maybe the Broncos. I forget. But he has injury concerns. I remember that. But they really like the traits, the upside, the versatility. So if you want to guard there, one of those two guys, Bradford from LSU or Savala, why not? Because I really feel like you can't overlook offensive line.
Yeah, and you also had Nick Selduberry from Old Dominion was another one
Oh yeah,
for
there you go.
offensive
I missed that
tackle.
one.
So
Tackle.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, there's like I said, it's offensive lineman. I think is a position where it's going to be it's heavy loaded this in this draft class. So I can see the Rams if they don't go all defense. I can see them like I would love for them to just focus on like the one thing you don't need and I don't know why teams continue to do this, and I kind of feel bad for the players for this position is linebacker because linebackers it's a weak division is a weak position this year in the draft. I wouldn't even try to focus on getting one. You can get one undrafted. I've seen a lot of teams, who have starters who are undrafted, unless you have like a guy who is gonna he just has talent and can go sideline to sideline. It's hard to find those now. And so you rather just focus on the defensive line and your secondary in the draft because that's where right for this draft class in 2023 they're heavy loaded, and so you can just pick and choose who you want to get.
Yeah, I want to say I've counted maybe three. I've read a lot of mock drafts. I've counted maybe three mock drafts that have a linebacker going in the first round. So that tells you how weak this draft class has been, or it is. For linebacker, I think there's a guy from Arkansas and maybe a guy from Clemson. I forgot their names, but I
Yes.
picture them in my head, and there's a few that are getting mocked in the first round, and it's pretty much a team that, like, I think I saw one to the Bills because they lost Tremaine Edmonds. So if you lost a linebacker, that's about it. But yeah, maybe don't worry about linebacker. And again, you only play one when you're playing these DB packages. And when now, like if you get another one, Ernest Jones is gonna get really annoyed because it
Yeah,
probably Wagner
exactly.
took all his snaps last year. So let Ernest Jones do what he has to do, and then kind of get a couple undrafted guys that go in with the special. Because also linebackers are pretty important for special teams, like
And the other
Rosewood.
thing is, Gilbert. Sorry, but the other thing that they're doing is they're moving a lot of safeties to linebackers. So that's the other thing too. So I mean, like I said, just try to focus on the secondary and the defensive line.
Yeah, now let's end this show with a couple of prospects from the cornerback 3rd round range, and I'll go through them.
Yeah, go
Cam
ahead.
Smith, South
Carolina.
Carolina; Julius Brents, Kansas State; Corey Trice from Junior from Purdue, and I'll focus on Trice there because I think I saw he's like 6'3", so he's a very lengthy cornerback. So after you lose to Jalen Ramsey, he's also pretty. I don't think he's 6'3", but he's pretty a tall cornerback. If you want to explore a guy with upside and has the size, maybe a Corey Trice in the 3rd round could be an option there. But again, these middle rounds, you never know. Maybe you get a
Yes.
couple right every now and then. But Cam Smith, Julius Brents, Corey Trice, if they draft one of these guys, then I got one right.
Yeah, no, and I mean you have Kobe Durant coming back, and
Yeah.
Kendrick, and that's pretty much it. So, and then we've seen teams hit on their corners, like a division rival in Seattle. They got Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant in the third and fourth
Yeah.
round.
Actually,
So
you're right.
yeah, so I mean, you can find cornerbacks, and as we said, there's 7 guys who have first round. I mean, a lot of these are gonna drop, and so you're gonna have, and you never know, man. Like the draft is such a crapshoot. Like evaluating players, you don't know how they're gonna go from being in college to the pros. There's a lot of guys who don't get the look that they should have gotten because they didn't go to a big school. That's why I was talking about someone like Carl Brooks from Bowling Green, because not a lot of these dudes, people know, everybody just focuses on the first round, And honestly, this is why the Rams do such a like look at where they found Cooper Cup. I mean, this is why having a good scouting department comes in. It's such a big deal, and we should have a better understanding or know who these scouts are because for the Rams and for all the teams, I don't think they get enough love because they're the ones that are able to find some of these talented players.
Yeah, I think the Rams are one of the few teams that allow reporters to talk to the scouts, so they get the names out there, and they that's a good job for like other teams. I know they don't stay away from the scouts, don't talk to them, and then you kind of always see them like being anonymous mentioned in the draft during the draft season. But yeah, there's something I was gonna say, but I forgot. If I remember, I remember. But yeah, it is the draft is around the corner. We'll probably do. What was actually no, I was gonna say something. What was it? It was about my mock draft too, and I'm really blanking. I wanted to say it too. What was it? Oh yeah, here we go. I got it. I made like a little small joke in my mock draft, and it's gonna happen. Watch. Uh, Cooper Cup was drafted 69th in 2017. They have the number 69 pick this year, the Rams. So whoever gets drafted that pick, oh, be prepared to be reminded. Oh yeah, that pick was Cooper Cup, by the way. And thanks for the high pressure. So
2017, yeah.
yeah, set the bar really high. So I can't wait for whoever gets that will be reminded that that was a Cooper Cup draft pick. So
It's kind of like the Tom Brady pick, 199, right? Like every time
yeah,
it comes up, this is where Tom Brady was drafted, and now it's a good moniker for Cooper Cup now. Like you picked 69, you know.
yeah, and then you hear people joking about the number two. So
Yeah,
nice.
he's
And
nice.
then it's like also the Brock Purdy like being the last
Yes,
draft
that's
pick. You're
gonna
gonna
be the
hear
next thing.
you're gonna hear it this year. So the bar is set really high for number 69, 69. I was gonna say nice 69th. But yeah, leave in the comments if you want to joke about it. But did I freeze or did you freeze? I forget. I don't know.
No, we're
We'll
good.
see.
We're
Okay,
good.
cool.
We're good.
I stopped there for a bit, but you know what? Are we done here, Victor? Anything you
Yes.
want to shout out,
No,
promote? What are you thinking?
we got a lot of things to promote. Before I ask you about what you're doing at SI, let me get to some things that we have going on here on Compas on the Beat Network. We had the big show, Compas on the Beat. We talked. We're getting ready. We're getting ready for the draft. We talked about the whole Jalen Hurts extension and what impact that's going to have on players like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. I'm glad the Rams don't have to deal with that. They've already paid their quarterback, so that's good. And then you got combat Compas. We have, we're getting you ready for the Ryan Garcia Gervonta Davis fight. There's a lot of WWE if you're into wrestling. Fernando has you covered there if you're looking for reaction to SmackDown and Monday Night Raw. We're putting out shorts and content for that. And then for Compas FC, if you're a big fan of soccer, they got you covered with Champions League. We got the Milan Derby as a semifinal with Inter Milan and AC Milan going up against Manchester City and Real Madrid. So that's going to be, some good matches there. If you want to check that out, they got you covered there. And then if you're interested in the Chargers at all, if you want to know what they're up to, you got What's Up Boats with Fernando and Dan and Dago. They got you covered there. And if I missed anything else, Gilbert, let me know.
No, you have plenty covered on the network there, and I wonder when Fernando and Dan talk about House of Horns. There, do they like if you care about the Rams, to Charger fans? I don't know how they do it, but yeah, just check out again. It goes a long way if you check out the Compass on the Beat merch.com. Link in the description. Same thing with compassonthebeat.com. That's where we have all the content in one place. Everything Victor just said, you instead of kind of searching for it, compassonthebeat.com, right there, whatever you want, click, scroll. We have tabs. We got to work on that one a little more, but it's pretty organized, I feel like. And then obviously, yeah, the one that's big is a merch because they help us grow here. But also, the newsletter is the biggest one. Pop up comes up, just put your email. That's all we ask. So, again, it's nice to come back here, House of Horns. There we go, not just singular, to talk to people and do a draft preview. And I don't know. Well, actually, no, I do know. It won't take a month this time because
No,
we're going to do a draft recap. Probably Monday. Yeah, hopefully Monday because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm probably really busy with draft coverage. But we'll get to it early in the week. We won't kind of lag it there. We'll kind of review the draft and see where it stands, and finally put some names to the picks there. We just were discussing about. Maybe we got a few right, maybe we didn't from the prospects we mentioned, but we'll see. And yeah, we won't be gone for long.
Yeah, and send us your questions. Any
Yes.
questions, anything we can improve on here, anything you'd like to see on the show, let us know and we'll work on it.
I think we're about to get a 59, 51 second mark. We're about to end it in 1 hour. So on that note, ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.